the episode of The Loco Fit Show, where we redefine what healthy means to you. I'm your host, Laurin Conlon, and this week I'm joined by Coach Sam in person.
Yeah.
So pleased to be doing this. We were chilling on the couch. I've never done a couch podcast. Actually, I have. When me and Celeste used to do podcasts, we would just talk. We did a lot on the couch. Oh, that sounded bad. And we're going downhill already. No, so we would do a lot just kind of like very just like relaxed and just chill. But the problem is without the mic stands, it was always hard because if you like move or get like too comfortable and then you're kind of like the mic just kind of like starts moving down. But we have these fancy mic stands. So we're in person. I'm in Minnesota.
And surviving.
Great. I am surviving because the weather is fantastic right now.
It's been lovely. It's been lovely having you here.
I know. So I will come back, but
only in the summer.
Yeah, only in the summer. Just going to say it. I'm just going to go on record. So be very surprised if I'm here in the winter.
Okay. I'll just have to make an event to make you come in the winter and just test
my fortitude.
Exactly.
Which actually is an interesting segue. Not really. Today's podcast is going to be about balance. And I made a post about this a few weeks ago. And there was a lot of people who had specific questions. And they're like, have you done a podcast on this? And I was like, I actually haven't. So here we are. Mm-hmm. We are going to be doing a podcast on learning to balance. Just, we're going to touch on, of course, like fitness, but also just life in general. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of the post was like learning to balance. I wrote in there like work, play, relationships, and connection, because for me, I've always really struggled oscillating between doing too much or too little of everything. Mm-hmm. Just kind of as a default, I'm very like so into something or not, or I overdo something, or then because I've overdone it, then I kind of pull back, or I just, distance myself. Mm-hmm. So whatever it might be, and I know that you've dealt with that as well in different ways. And I think everybody, maybe not everybody, but I feel like a lot of people deal with that in some capacity.
Yeah. I would say especially the people that are interested in this world, and with, the things that are presented a lot of times for achieving your goal, like going all in, blah, 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 like all that stuff. It can be really easy to think you have to be extreme rather than, and then it's hard to find balance once you have that mindset. So I think even if it's not in the fitness world, I think everybody can relate to feeling like either they have little structure at all, or they're like too all in into something. So yeah, I would agree.
I think that first we have to say that the word balance is tough. I really wish there was like a different word we could use, because I feel like it's kind of like anything. It gets taken to a different, like, the word balance is great and the idea of balance is great, but sometimes people will overlay their expectations of what they think that word should mean. Mm-hmm. And then it gets kind of like a confusing definition. And there really is never like a perfect balance, because that's always dynamic. Yeah. So I think that sometimes people want to hear balance and they think that everything should be like this, like these scales just like perfectly here. It's like, no, like balance in a certain period of your life might look very different. Like for 3 months, what balance is here, it might be different in the next 3 months based on like your life circumstances or your goals or whatever it is. And I think that that's the tough part with balance, is that especially people who are like very particular about like, they want something to be satisfying. Like, okay, I'm going to be balanced now. I'm going to be perfectly balanced. It's like, no, you can't be, because then when you can't be perfectly balanced, then it's like, well, we'll throw this balance thing out the window.
Right. Yeah. We talk about a lot about that with like prep and stuff. When you're in prep, people will be like, you should be more balanced, like have some fun. It's like, well, this time in my life, balance looks like 90 on and 10 off. Whereas when I'm not in prep, or when I'm in like a lifestyle phase, I can be more like 80-20, 70-30, sometimes 50-50. But sometimes for a specific goal, you have to be a little less balanced. And then sometimes it's life circumstances like school, work, family. You have different demands where you have to change where your energy goes. But you can still have some semblance of balance rather than feeling like it has to be all or nothing. Mm-hmm.
And that balance is going to look different for every individual. So before we share anything moving forward, we have to go into it with understanding that my definition of balance is going to look different than your definition of balance, and really every single person listening, because we all have different goals, we have different interests, we have different lives, and we're ultimately working towards a different version of ourselves. And you'll see some people who maybe you think, oh, they live so lax and they live so relaxed, or I get lax, relaxed. Great. So many great synonyms. Or they don't have enough structure in their life. but for them, or they don't have a certain type of goal that maybe you appreciate. And it's like, well, that's what they want to do. And then on the other side of that, there's people who are very, very goal driven and they have a lot going on and they live what most people consider a very rigid life. But that to them is their sense of balance, because if they don't do those things, then they find themselves doing other really negative things, or they're not happy because they're not progressing in the way that they want. So I think that unless this version of balance, or imbalance, I guess, is affecting other people in a really detrimental way, I think we have to accept and understand, okay, we're all going to look very different in this sense, and that's okay. So when we're talking about this is only for you as the individual, and you cannot, like, you can look to other people for inspiration and guidance and motivation, and but you have to define this for yourself.
Right. What you want your life to look like and what success looks like for you. And if you're somebody who thrives in a very rigid, extreme lifestyle, then that's okay. Again, yeah, if it's not affecting anybody else, that's fine. So as you're listening to this, don't think, well, I live that way, so I need to change to be more balanced. As long as you're thriving, succeeding, and you're happy with the way your life looks, that's okay. That's totally fine. But one of the questions we had was, how do I know? Like, how do I know if I'm too extreme? And I think that misalignment between what you want your life to look like, what you're striving for, and the lifestyle that you're living, that's when you're going to know if this isn't working for you, and then where you need to make changes. And I think even having that question, like, how do I know, is a good indicator that there may be something you want to work on.
Yeah, because typically if you're pretty confident in that, and I will say that does take time. It does take time to build the confidence, especially if you're doing something that's very different than other people around you. It's going to take a little bit of time to develop that. Like, okay, I'm on the right path, right. Because if I'm doing something that's so different than everybody else I know, this might feel maybe kind of weird or kind of out of place. But I think after time, or over time, once you get more solidified with those goals, then you feel pretty confident with it. But that does take, I think, a lot of introspection to recognize, and also understanding that you can change what that definition looks like for you.
Yeah.
And that can be a year-to-year thing. That can be every few months. Like, hey, got to buckle up. I have these deadlines. I have this thing that I'm trying to work towards. Or I have this crazy busy season of whatever it might be for you.
Or I'm unhappy with the way I've been living my life. I thought that I wanted this lifestyle, and I'm really unhappy. I think I need more structure or less structure. That's okay to change your mind. Even if you said, this is what I want, it may end up not being what you want. And so changing your mind, changing your lifestyle is probably the right answer.
Yeah, and whenever you're changing something, you don't need to do it overnight. You don't need to be like, oh, I had a bad day, so this means I'm not on the right path. Like, no, but if it's something that if you actually give yourself the space to reflect on it, you're like, all right, this keeps coming up. This is making me unhappy, or me striving towards this isn't creating the results that I thought that I wanted. Then maybe it is time to readjust. So let's discuss.
Let's turn off the fan. I can hear it in my headphones.
Oh, okay.
You hear that whirring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see that huge tear that just fell down my eye for no reason? I was like, how do I casually?
I was like, I'm getting, my hair is blowing in my face, and I feel like they're gonna be able to hear that. So
the mics are so good they can pick.
I know. Then I was like, can they hear that? And I could hear like.
Yeah. It picks up a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So let's define extremes, right? So let's talk about the extreme end of this in terms of rigidity. And again, this is going to look different for everybody, but what would be some examples of when too much is too much?
Right. I would say when we're talking, let's talk about the fitness nutrition realm right off the bat. It's that I can't take a rest day. I have to be there 7 days a week. A 20-minute walk isn't enough of a workout for me. It has to be 2 hours long, dead at the end, sore for 4 days, those kind of extremes. Okay, that's a little extreme of an extreme. But a lot of people do have a hard time saying, yeah, a 20-minute walk is a workout. It has to be an hour-long workout. I have to be in the gym every day of the week. With diet, I'm on all the time. I can't take a cheat day. I can't take an untracked meal. And if I do take an untracked meal, it is a cheat day. It's all or nothing. I'm off.
It's a cheat weekend.
It's a cheat weekend. It's that one meal turns into 2 meals, turns into, everything else. And so it's totally on, totally off with diet. And then when it comes to work and lifestyle, it's really putting all your energy into one singular thing, and everything else around you tends to crumble, relationships struggle, or you focus too much on your relationship and your job starts to struggle, and you have a really hard time putting your energy into different places because you do have that all or nothing mindset, or that hyperfixation almost of like, this thing in my life is all I can focus on, and then everything else, falls to the wayside.
And there might be a time or place to do that for a short period, right? Like, wow, there's something really bad happened in my relationship. Mm-hmm. This is going to take a lot of energy for us to repair this. Mm-hmm. Or there's a really big work project, mm-hmm. and I have these deadlines for the next 3 months. Mm-hmm. This is really important for either, a promotion or a position or mm-hmm. something. And then, but in that sense, whenever it is something that's more lifestyle related, that's when communication with others who are in your life mm-hmm. is going to be so important, because again, the idea of balance is going to look different for everybody. And what we said in the beginning was, as long as it's not affecting other people, mm-hmm. To a negative detriment, right? Not like some person in your life who's like, oh bro, like just be a little less. No, like somebody who actually like has real weight and real merit in your life who is being negatively affected. It's important to communicate to those people. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the work example. Hey, I have these deadlines, or I'm going to be traveling, or I'm going to be doing this. Communicate with your partner, like, all right, mm-hmm. this is going to be what's going on, or your family in whatever capacity. And then when this is over, this is mm-hmm. what we're going to go back to, or this is what I'm going to start to incorporate. Yeah. And I often find that like the struggles in this sense, when it's involving other people, is because there's no like timeline, right? And if you to be like, hey, mm-hmm. this next year is going to be really, really hard. This next year is going to be crazy. Most people will be like, wow, it's going to kind of suck, but okay, I can do it. Instead of, I'm just really busy right now, and just kind of leave it open. And is that a week? Is that a month? Is that 2 years? Yeah. When you give people a deadline, or you communicate those needs in a more, ideal timely fashion, mm-hmm. then I think it's better. And sometimes you can't do that, like, understandably. Mm-hmm. But when you're in a position to where you can do that, I think that solves a lot of those problems when we're talking about it involving somebody else. Yeah.
And I think another thing about these extremes and living an extreme lifestyle, sometimes it is the time that you're in, like you were saying. There's things like prep where it's going to be extreme, and it has to be. It has to be. But that communication saying that, this is what it is for right now is helpful to everyone. But also setting the expectations with yourself of what that extreme period looks like. I'll take the newborn period, for example. I have a lot of clients who are moms or new moms, and they get really frustrated that I can't work out. I can't eat the way I want to. I can't do the things I want to do. And it's not that they can't do them. It's just they can't do them the way they once did. So they don't do them at all, rather than changing what that balance looks like we're talking about, saying, okay, just because I do have to place most of my focus into this little creature that I'm learning how to take care of. It's a foreign thing for new moms. Yeah. Sometimes, but accepting that right now isn't the time where I'm probably going to make super big gains in the gym, or I'm going to be experimenting with new recipes and having delicious meals, and accepting that, and then saying, okay, but I can still do some workouts, which is going to be better than nothing. I can still eat some nutritious foods, even if it's not the most fancy thing in the world. But accepting that extreme is just temporary is really helpful. But there does come a place where when it is, there's no room for anything else. When you say, I can't do it because I don't have enough in me, like that, like working out or, and a lot of people get this way, and this is where they struggle, is that they have demanding careers, they have a family life, they have all of these things, and they say, well, I have so much going on in my life, I can't fit in the other things. It's because they think of it in that extreme. They think, I can't fit in working out 7 days a week. I can't fit in hour-long workouts every day. I can't fit in making these beautiful meal prep recipes. And that's not, that extreme of, if I can't do all of these things perfectly, I can't do it at all, is what holds so many people back. And I think that's the biggest mindset shift in getting past that. And do we want to touch on that now?
Yeah, we can touch on that now. I think that ties really great into that point where you said earlier, okay, if I can't go for a 2-hour workout, or I'm drenched in sweat, or, I'm doing a 45 or an hour long cardio session, like, this is pointless. Like, no, something is always better than nothing. Mm-hmm. Now, if we're talking about optimal, no, is this optimal? It's not. but that's not the conversation that we're having, right? Optimal like physique development or like optimal strength performance or like anything like that, like athletic development, those are different conversations.
Yeah.
But if we're saying you're either going to hold yourself to a standard that is physically not possible right now of training 7 days a week, 2 hours at a time, or hey, I got in 3 20-minute body weight circuits and then I went for a 10 or 20-minute walk every day. That is significantly better. Is that the most optimal? Maybe not, but it's certainly more optimal than doing nothing. And I really think that a lot of people, especially when we're talking about like maintaining anything, the response to maintain is so much lower. And that's not giving people a pass to like not try and like make this work into their schedule. You know what I mean? Like, of course, like this is still going to be work, but it's going to be significantly, I think people don't realize that they can get a lot more results from doing less, but they're getting 0 results because they're doing nothing.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think starting with something often leads to doing more. Once you've been able to fit in those 20-minute body weight circuits, then you're like, okay, I can do this. I have this in my schedule. Maybe I'll make it, can I fit in an extra 10 minutes? Can I add some weights to this? And it can progress. But I love when you say like, is it optimal? No, but it might be optimal for your circumstances. And so many of the things that you're dealing with that are keeping you from working out and keeping you from making time for this are often like not doing those things are the reason why you're struggling. You don't have the energy. You feel weak. You feel all these, you're not sleeping well. You have a poor mood. If you were to just fit these little pieces in, you'd be able to do them much better and have a lot of those problems not solved, but lessen. And then again, it can spiral into a positive cycle of adding these things in. And I think it's so difficult to get past that all or nothing mindset. But the more you start just giving yourself that pass to say like, hey, something is better than nothing. And sometimes, it's the opposite effect of someone saying like they're working out every single day, to say taking a step back is actually helping me progress. That can be really, really challenging, but introducing it slowly with those little chunks, or just the one rest day a week or an active rest day rather than doing absolutely nothing. That gradual can help break out of that rigidity rather than, ripping the rug out from someone and being like, I know you work out 7 days a week, but I want you to take a full deload week and actually just like a full like non-training week. Not going to happen. That's
so hard for clients. And I know a lot of people when they're dealing with, let's say it's like hormonal issues or adrenal issues or whatever it might be, a lot of people say, oh, okay, it's because you're doing all this. So let's just cut it down to like, you don't even need to weight train if you want to get this back. That's actually stressful in and of itself, right? If you were to take somebody who has been enjoying training, maybe they're doing a little bit too much. I'm not going to say that they're not, but now you're taking that down to like nothing. Now they don't have anything there, so it's like, again, what is optimal for right now? Maybe optimal really is for easy light lifts with just some walking for cardio. But if we're not even there yet, like, why are we doing that? Same thing when we add in, untracked meals, or we have people start tracking either direction, right? In terms of food. Sometimes we might see, okay, this is where we want people to end up, but we're not going to start there.
Yeah.
And it's okay to take those baby steps because that is still better than what you were doing. And we would rather support those goals and take a little bit longer. But then when you actually get there, that you're able to maintain that, whether it's a physique or a mindset or a lifestyle, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's in terms of being too extreme. You're going to want to recognize, when is this affecting you? When is this affecting other people? Starting really slow in either direction, right? But then there's also the other side of this is when you can become too balanced. And you brought this up, and I thought this was a really great direction because there's a lot of talk about being more balanced, but there's not the talk of the other side of this, which is just as detrimental when you say, you know what, maybe I have been really extreme for most of my life and really rigid. And then you lose all structure and you become too balanced and too flexible.
Yeah, it's that. I think we've all, like, not probably all of us, but joke, we've definitely done this where we joke like, oh, I'm going to get the ice cream because balance. And yeah, that can be a part of balance in your life. But when that's an excuse, in quotes, an excuse to make poor decision after poor decision after poor decision after poor decision, that's not productive. And I feel like a lot of people who have been on the other side of that, I feel like people who have been competitors, people who have had, like myself, had an eating disorder or exercise addiction, you've lived such an extreme lifestyle, you've put yourself through the ringer, and sometimes it can be this chronic, like, well, I deserve this because I have been through hell and been through hell and been through hell. And so I deserve to be relaxed and enjoy myself. But really, when you become too relaxed, when you become too balanced, you lose all discipline. It often is just, you create problems because you have nothing productive to focus on. And that's when you can become more anxious. You can become more lost because you have nothing that you're aiming for and you're directionless. And that lack of structure can actually end up being more stressful than the structure and discipline was in the first place.
They're totally different and they feel very different, but they end up in the same place. You know, you feel like you're spinning your wheels. You feel like you're not getting you have no direction. You're not moving forward in any capacity. And you're like, wait, but I was trying to do this to like counteract. But again, this is just the same side of a different extreme. You know, it is the exact same issue. And I think that people who have dealt with one extreme have more of the proclivity to deal with the other extreme when they're trying, you know, like the ice cream was a perfect example, or anything like that, you know, like, oh yeah, I deserve this, or like, you know, because of balance. And it's like, yeah, maybe it is balance, but like balance, was that like 4 times a week?
Yeah.
Was that like necessary? Yeah. Or was this just because like now I can have it? And I think a lot of people can deal with that, especially after a kind of a rigid diet. You know, oh, I said no to this so many times, so now I get to say yes to it because it's here and because I couldn't have this before because of balance. And we do use that as a kind of a justification. And you even kind of called me out on this the other day about, you know, I've had, because of my structure, because of my schedule, I've had to become a lot more flexible, right, with how I navigate things. But in that process, and due to a few other things too, I have lost a lot of structure. And now I still get the same amount of things done, but I might do them in kind of a more like haphazard way. And you were like, you know, maybe you need to get back on more of a structured schedule and say, okay, like between these hours I do this and whatever. And you know, my immediate response is why I didn't do that was because then I was that person that, okay, if I block this out and then it doesn't happen that way, then oh my gosh, how am I going to do it? And of course there's different ways to navigate that, which is just an excuse. Like, no, I know that. Like I know that being too rigid with a structure, with a schedule is not helpful, but having no structure also makes you feel like you're just kind of spinning your wheels. So this applies to everything. You know, this is diet, this is training, this is lifestyle, this is goals. Just because you can do something, and like I have the opportunity to do things whenever, you know, relatively speaking, meaning I don't have kids and all that. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. Doesn't mean it's a good idea to, okay, I'm going to take this 4-hour work block, and instead of doing it at an early time and then calling it and then giving myself the space before bed to actually set myself up for success for the next day, okay, I'm going to push this work block from 7 to 11 p.m. I can do that.
Yeah.
But is that a good idea for the rest of the week? Right. And sometimes, again, that balance kind of goes out the window. Like, hey, I have deadlines. I got to do this. I got to crank it out. It's not going to be optimal. But on a day to day, when you're not in that season and you've kind of just let that happen, you really just need to like check yourself. You basically just have to check in with yourself, which is how we're going to tie this together, because I think a lot of times people hear this stuff, they're like, okay, I can resonate with these, but like, what do I do? Right.
And I think too, before we move on to that, when you say like, you know, adding in that structure, I think for people who are just by nature more extreme on the lack of structure side, they kind of just float through life, do things when they want to do them, you know, just, it'll get done. I think the idea of introducing structure to their life is really scary and really like just feels rigid. It feels uptight. It feels like, God, this is gonna make my life so boring and constraining. Exactly. But it can also really add some freedom to your life, because you have the discipline to do things, and then you can get things done a little bit better. And it doesn't have to be super rigid in order to be structured. Like myself, I wake up between a 1-hour window, go to bed between a 1-hour window. Sometimes it's 5 a.m., sometimes it's 6 a.m., but it's usually sometime between that time. And that gives me that leeway to say, oh, I wake up at 5 and I'm like, I am not ready. I can go back to bed for a little bit, but my body has regulated to that kind of thing. And that's been really helpful for me to know what I need when I'm going to go to, like, I know exactly why I don't feel good. It's because I didn't go to bed when I normally do, or things like that. And again, this is where people fall into the trap of my life is super unstructured. So now I need to add all of the structure. I need to start working out 7 days a week. I need to start eating perfectly. And then that never happens.
Google Calendar every hour.
Exactly. And that never happens because it's not sustainable. So don't think that if you're in this place, which a lot of people can be, especially I feel like summer and the holiday season are the best ones for this, because it's just too easy to do like those hedonistic things. Like I don't want to be structured. I want to just sit outside by the fire until 11, or I want to do these fun things, especially in Minnesota when it's nice out. We don't get this. This is like a 2-month window. It can be really easy to just be more lax. And then it's when you're looking at adding that structure into your life, think about those things that are simple and things that you can control most of the time. So even when you're traveling, you can probably control your wake up time. Well, even when you're traveling, you can control your supplements. Things like that are things that you can do in any circumstance. Most of the time, you can find protein. Most of the time, you can do little things like
chicken.
That. You can go for a walk. Well, we ordered chicken last night
after the podcast.
We ordered a whole chicken. Well, we ordered
it didn't say whole chicken. It said beer can chicken, and your friends had said that it was a whole chicken, which I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's like a baby or
a Cornish hen, like a little mini chicken. It was a
motherfucker came out the whole ass chicken.
We each ordered a whole rotisserie chicken, and the joke of the night was this place was called Whiskey Inferno Meat House and Whiskey or Craft Cocktail Bar. It's in Savage, Minnesota. If you're ever interested, it's phenomenal. But we were like, meatheads, meat house, this is perfect. And we ended up buying whole rotisserie chickens on accident. It was, are we fitness professionals or are we fitness professionals?
I'm not mad about it. No. Now we have lunch. So.
It was so good. And their cocktails were fantastic too. Environment killer. We highly recommend. But again, focus on what you can control. And that goes for the extreme too.
Because the other night we went out for your birthday. Mm-hmm. We went somewhere where we knew, okay, again, like a cute cocktail bar, but the food, and you'd already prepped me, like the food is just kind of like, very fatty, kind of
the
like
barriest
fun,
of bar foods.
Yeah, kind of fun food, stuff that we normally we would eat every once in a while, right? And of course we're eating it, and I'm like, okay, this is obviously delicious, but this is certainly something that I wouldn't normally order. And then I knew, okay, then yesterday had like a protein shake in the morning, went and had like a quinoa double chicken veggie salad for lunch, and then we went to that place for dinner. So it's like, okay, that's what regulation and balance looks like. It doesn't mean that we're saying yes or no to either. It's saying, okay, I made this choice one day, so now because of that choice I need to make a different choice the following day. And that's where the real regulation comes in. And that was a day-to-day example, but it could be maybe 2 days in a row, and then for 3 days you need to follow it up. And that can, when you're stuck in a very extreme cycle, that can become that yo-yo cycle. Oh, well, if I eat this way one day, then the next day I got to eat. We're not saying that. We're saying to regulate and know, okay, every once in a while, I'm probably going to go and have something that is a little bit more indulgent. But all the other choices that I'm going to make are going to be more conducive for my goals. And you touched on it, which I thought was so great. And like the discipline does give you that freedom, right? Like it really gives you more time back. And I've been trying to talk about this more with like the morning routine and the habits. And even the past few days, I've been doing less walks, and I didn't really realize how much I was doing until I do it. Right. And then I was like, man, like I do feel so much better when I just move more. And it just happened to me because the past few days we were just doing more sedentary things, which is totally fine. But today I was like, no, I need to be outside for a little bit longer and go for a longer walk because I don't know what's going to happen later. And we actually were able to do a second one, so it was fine. But like just those small things, saying, okay, like, but me doing that, even though taking time to do certain things, it actually gives me more time back. Because then I feel better, and then I'm more productive, and I'm more focused, and I'm less overwhelmed, and ironically less drained.
Right.
But there's of course that edge. Oh, activity's good, must do more. No, there is a point where there's a point of diminishing returns. Of doing everything's on a bell curve.
Everything.
There's that happy middle, which is going to be different for each individual, and you need to know what that is for you. But then doing too much and then doing too little on either end is going to be like more or less is not always a good thing. It actually is finding that kind of middle ground. Yeah.
And with the extreme too, the extremely rigid, I think one thing people often complain about is, especially with work, work and family, it's like, I can't control that I have all this work. I can't control my hours. I can't control whatever. And then that turns into I can't control anything. And that goes back to that we were talking about before, and those little choices that you make, and with the balance, like you said, the balance day to day. I love that, like being, checking in and regulating. And somebody was talking about this recently. It might have been Karina. You might know when I bring this up, but someone was talking about taking their day in thirds or in quarters of like their morning, like looking back on their morning and how their morning was. What choice did I make this morning? What could I do better in the second half of my day? And looking, or over the midday and then in the evening, and looking at your day as those different like quadrants or thirds can help you to then make the next best decision a little bit better than being like, oh, I actually did this the other day. I got cookies for my birthday, and we hadn't eaten breakfast yet. I was a little hungry. I was like, I'm just going to have a little bit of cookie. And I could have easily been like, oh my God, I had a cookie for breakfast. My day is ruined. Like, that was such a stupid decision. God, well, fine. I already had that cookie for breakfast. Might as well just have ice cream for lunch. Might as well just sit on my butt all day. Like, I could have easily done that. But instead I was like, oh yeah, I had that cookie for breakfast. Maybe I'll have like some grilled chicken breast for lunch, and then I'll have a protein shake later, and then maybe for dinner I'll have a little bit more of an indulgent thing because it is my birthday or whatever. But it wasn't that all or nothing mindset is easier to catch when you can let go of that portion of your day, and you stop thinking of the day as a whole or the week as a whole, because just because you had something doesn't mean your week is ruined. And that's that huge extreme. So that's like a pretty practical strategy you can do, is start looking at your day or your week as in different time blocks.
Yeah, and that's also where, people talk about, okay, like, let's set these goals for myself, and then did I like circle that as like a W for the day, or like a check mark for the day, or did I hit this? Okay, I set out to do these many tasks. Did I do them? And again, for people who are really rigid, that can be too extreme. Mm-hmm. But for somebody who needs more structure, that might be helpful. And then maybe you are somebody who was really rigid before, but now you're able to regulate that and say, okay, like I have these different tasks. I know you were doing it, like set out several and then do like set up 6 and do 4.
Yeah, that's a Huberman shared that he talked about setting 6 goals for the week or for the day, but your goal is actually to only achieve 4 of them. So it's built-in failure. So if you miss one, that's okay. Rather than being like, oh, I missed one, I guess I'm not going to hit all 6 today. That's not the goal. It's 4 of 6. And that was game-changing for me.
Yeah, I've never done that, but that is super interesting, and so whatever it is that you need to hold yourself accountable with, everybody has a different system that works, but trying a system is probably going to be the most useful. And this could go either way, right? This could go like, hey, I need to add in more structure, or I need to be a little bit less rigid. Like, those goals are particular to you. It's just about having a system to say like, okay, I accomplished this or I didn't. And I think that checking in and assessing with yourself is how you're going to be able to make this progress. And you said my like new favorite phrase, have a reflective practice. So whether that is, checking in with a coach, talking to your therapist, journaling, giving yourself just the space to have that introspection in some capacity. Obviously it can be harder to talk with someone who is really close in your life, because sometimes even if they don't want to be, they can be a little bit biased, and so sometimes, sometimes having a detached person who's in your life but isn't in your day-to-day life can be nice. You have like friends like that too, who are like, I'm close with you, but like you're not in my actual everyday life. So sometimes it's easier for them to see situations, versus like, obviously if you live with a partner, or, you're really close with your parents or something like that, it could be like, maybe they're not always the best people. Like, they can be good gauges, especially if there was an issue that you're actively working through that involved them. If it was an issue with a relationship, it might be something that you need to bring that partner in with, but are you doing that with a counselor, or what's going on? So there's a lot of nuance here, but having some type of reflective practice and be able to see, okay, am I tangibly making changes? Because going back to what we started with, what does that look like for you? You have to create that life that you want to live, and then set your goals to match that. Yeah, you have to know what that life looks like. And sometimes that's identifying what's not working, first of all, to say, okay, this is what in my life is causing me stress, anxiety, whatever that may be. What can I do about it? That's one of my favorite strategies for attacking problems like this, and this particularly anxiety, is what is it that's bothering me? What of those things can I control and change?
okay, now how am I actually going to change them? And setting those intentions and those goals for the actions that you're going to do. And then, I mean, it's as cheesy as it sounds, but like having that vision board or having that visual of what I want my life to look like. And then when you do that check-in, say, okay, does my life look like this yet? Where have I made improvements? Where haven't I? Now, what can I do to make that better? And I'd say this all the time with coaching. Coaching can help you in so many ways, but I think that the reflection on your week is the most important, one of the most important things that we do. Because if you don't have a coach, how often do you sit down and look back on your week? How often are you like, how was my mental health this week? How was my relationship with food this week? How was my strength, my hunger, my anything? I mean, I don't do that anymore because I don't check in with you on a weekly basis, and I don't need to as much because I did it for so long. But that's something that most people are not aware of at all until you start doing it. And the biggest one I've talked about on the podcast before, but is menstrual cycle. So many women are like, man, I didn't realize how much that was actually affecting me. It's like, I can tell without even looking when someone's PMSing. Absolutely. Just based on their disposition, hunger, weight, sleep, all of those things. I can pretty much tell without looking on most people, but they can't until they start to see those patterns. And so having that reflection almost, forced on you when you sign up for coaching is something that is completely invaluable. And that may be something that once you're done with coaching, you do on your own. Or if you can't afford coaching right now, do that on your own. Set up a little self-check-in and some prompts for you to answer on a weekly basis so that you can reflect. How am I doing with creating more structure in my life? Or how am I doing with adding in just some 20-minute workouts to my already crazy schedule? Those kind of like prompts and questions can be really, really helpful at checking in with yourself.
Yeah, and you can do that even on a daily basis if you want to journal, or just even, like you said, create a prompt and then just sit with it. So you can do it on a small scale, or you can do it on a weekly kind of like, hey, let me hit a few bullet points and let me really see where I'm improving here. Because if you don't have any kind of metric, it's hard because our brains will create a lot of scenarios, right? Either direction, right? Like, oh man, like it feels like if you had a bad workout, then like the whole week was ruined. It's like, maybe I just had one bad workout because I didn't sleep well that night.
Yeah.
Or I didn't fuel properly the first day. Or maybe my workout on Monday was really hard and then that's why I felt this way. So when you're able to be objective about it, you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't really the end of the world.
Yeah.
Or like, oh my God, I'm so crazy hungry today. Like, what's wrong with me? Or this, that. There must be something that's off. And we kind of end up creating these scenarios, then we make them a lot bigger than they really are. When it's in reality, when you look back, you're like, wait, actually, that was just one day this week.
Yeah.
And it was probably pretty easy to tease out why this happened. And that's one of the great things I think about our check-in process is we ask all these questions because we want to see how it all kind of flows together. And when somebody's able to share that, it's so easy or easier for us to see because we are detached and we have all this information now and we're like, hey, A plus B plus C equals what you were feeling this week. It was very obvious to me why this was happening. And then it's like, oh yeah, you're right.
And it doesn't always make the struggle easier. Sometimes it does, but having a reason rather than being like, why am I like this, can make it that easier all on its own. Why am I like this? So I think
probably a reason. And you just probably haven't reflected on it long enough.
Yeah, there's definitely a reason. I was going to say something along the lines of what you're talking about, but I forgot. So go ahead, continue.
No, it's fine. Now I don't know either. I was going to have a point, and then we both just we're thinking about chicken salad.
I got it. Along with the goals that you were talking about with the Huberman approach, and it was someone else's approach he shared on behavior change, and we can that podcast it's on creating behavior and habits on the Huberman Lab. But I did make a habit tracker that's custom to that. So it's got the day of the month, it's got the habits at the top, the goals and everything set. So if you are interested in that approach, you want the habit tracker, you can email me, sam@teamlocofit.com, and we can send that out to you. But then, if you want that accountability aspect, that is where often habits really make a difference, and where we coach people with habits all the time. And that's for either extreme. Changing your habits is usually the best approach.
Oh, that's where everything's going to start.
Yeah.
And obviously we can get fun with like the nitty gritty details and changing things, but it's often not that. It's the smaller week to week changes. And that's the kind of stuff that as a coach, it's so exciting because it feels like, well, we didn't really make a lot of changes here. We didn't make a lot of progress. But then when you look up in like 3 months, it's like, oh, actually all of those small things like that reflection plus that accountability plus these tiny adjustments, that is where the changes are going to really occur. So Great point there. Great segue to end the show.
Yeah,
Killed it.
awesome.
If you guys have any other questions about coaching or for us, you can visit the website, teamlocafit.com. You'll also be able to check out the resources we provide, and we'll be sharing more about our app very, very soon. So if you guys like the show, please share it, subscribe, do all of the things. You know how to do that. And we will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.